Well folks, we're on the big one today. Get off, fly. We are on the GSA, the biggest of the Rhinos. 30 litre tank under here. We'll do a walk around at some point. I have had this motorcycle for, just scrolling through the options here, almost 2,000 Ks. So I've done about 2,000 Ks. There's been commuting, there's been gravel roads, there's been, a bit of tarmac fun, mostly, tearing loose on gravel, really. And so I'm getting to know it pretty well now in terms of what it does well and what it doesn't do well. So we're in Enduro Pro mode. I'm running the traction control essentially off, so it can do some skids and can do some wheelies. We'll get back to that traction control in a minute, but let's get rolling. Twin acros come with this version, the trophy version of the GSA. We've got 154 Ks worth of fuel, which is about a quarter of a tank. That is deliberate, to try and run as little fuel and as little weight in the tank as possible. Throw that visor down. Been an absolute stinker here today down on the coast. First day over 40 degrees for summer. Just started to cool off now, it's in the afternoon. And a bit of a shout out to the boys at Fox actually. I'm running their adventure jacket and pants, part of their new adventure line. I'm running the mid-weight or mid sort of spec option, top and bottom, which has the most ventilation because I am a sweaty hot pig at the best of times, and I'm running the zip in the vent position today, so the whole zip down the front is a vent and I am loving it. A bit of breeze on a day like today is wunderbar. Very, very, very good. Now back to the GSA. What can I tell you about the big girl? It is big, it's so big. Noticeably bigger and heavier obviously than the regular 1300 GSs that I have tested, both the Pure and the Trophy X version. This is running Karoo tyres on this one, so we have some purchase in this very dry sandy gravel. Lots of sticks and crap everywhere all over the track here today. As I said, super hot, nasty north dry wind here today. So there's a bit of a front end tuck there. That was fun. Maybe not as much purchase as I thought there was. So yes, noticeably bigger, heavier, more top heavy, but heavier just in general than the 1300. It has the longest travel, 10 or 15 millimeters seat height. Very, very tall seat. I've got the rally seat option, and I've got it in its low setting, which is still tippy toes for me. I'm 6 foot old money, or just a little under, about 181 centimeters, and I find it very high, bulky, a little cumbersome when you're going slowly. But sorry stick, but moving around, once you get it sort of going, it feels quite nice. Very heavy, 270 kilos. This is not a bike that you will jump on lightly. There's a bit of a weight pun for you. But the suspension is pretty good. Like, that's soaking that stuff up pretty well. The suspension is not didn't bottom out there either. And that's normally one of my tests, to slam into that one. So yes, the suspension is really nice on this. And actually, I think if anything, surprisingly, that bit of extra weight, I find this bike, thanks Wallaby for going that way, I find the GSA more predictable and easier to slide around than the smaller GSAs. Small being an odd word to use for a bike that weighs as much as the GS 1300s do. However, you get the point. So apparently the traction control system and settings and map and everything is the same as the regular GSs, but I find this much more predictable, much more controllable, even when TC is turned off. So, you know, I think the suspension works a little better when there's a bit more weight involved. So a little counterintuitive there. And again, it's that compromise of it's pretty bulky and awkward at standstill, but once you get moving and you get it sort of flowing, it's quite a nice bike. Very different in feel to Ducati's Multistrada Rally. Very, very, very different in feel. So the Multistrada Rally, which is obviously Ducati's version of long distance hauler, feels playful and relatively light on the move. I don't know how they've done that. It is some supreme trick of engineering. I can't say the same about the GSA, so we're not going to go up that more challenging track today. We're going to go up here. What else can I tell you? So yeah, I find it more predictable and just a nicer thing to slide around than the 1300. It just feels a bit more planted. And there is just gobs of torque. So, you know, you want to throw rocks at the scenery. That's fourth gear at 80k is not a problem. Yeah, so if you want to have fun, definitely can. Repeatedly. The other big difference I found on this GS, and it's probably the most important difference over the other ones, which were MY24 models, I believe, but apparently there has been some optimization in the quick shift in that gearbox, and it has made a noticeable difference. I was very, very critical of the gearbox in the two bikes that I rode, the Pure and the Trophy X, but this version the gearbox is quite nice. So whatever they've done, there was a problem in the other two bikes, it's been sorted. It's still a little clunky in the lower three gears. It's still a little clunky in the lower three gears, but yeah, noticeably better. Upshift, downshift, what are we, third gear now. Yeah, it's nice and smooth. Yeah, that front's still wandering around a bit. Yeah, so it's interesting, isn't it? That extra weight makes it more predictable, makes it more stable, definitely more stable, and makes it more planted. And I think it's a bike that you have to adapt to rather than jump on straight away and go, ah yeah, I can throw this around and this is a toy. Again, a little bit like the Multistrada Rally, you can just jump on that thing and go, yep, I know how to ride this straight away. Not so, I don't think, the big GSA. So when I first got on it, I didn't like the way that it tipped into corners. I thought it was almost reluctant to sort of change a line or tip in off center, and then it would fall in. And so I had to change my body position, change the way that I ride it, and once you do that, it starts to make more sense. So a bike like this with all the extra weight, it makes more sense if you stay upright pretty much and you just steer the bike underneath you more like a dirt bike, even on the road. That's the bit that sort of surprised me. So I was riding it more like a road bike on the road, whereas really you get it to tip over on its side, and you know, you don't need to move much at all. You certainly don't want to hang off the inside of a bike like this. It doesn't work. So it's kind of, it's a bit of a lazy man sports bike, I suppose. You just sort of stay in the one spot and let the bike do the work, and that's when it starts to shine. That's when it comes to life. So yeah, once I've adapted to it, yeah, it starts to make more sense. It is still undeniably big and bulky and heavy and high, so anything technical I'm avoiding. So even that, you know, the track that I took the multi-strata rally down, I don't know, 6 months ago, I know it's going to be pretty sandy today, super duper dry, and I know there's a couple of ruddy sections that would have been, you know, made worse in the time intervening between now and then. I'd rather not go up that on this. I'm avoiding technical hard stuff where I need to put a foot down potentially, or you know, anything that's going to be hard work. Stay there, kangaroo, please. Thank you very much, Lee. So that should give you an indication of, you know, where this bike will sit for most people. And I know there'll be some people that'll be able to do that and they'll be able to charge through that and they'll be great at it. But you know, you're the 1%ers, or those people are the 1%ers. So, you know, take that into account. He's a big boy. So I'm not going to, and I think, you know, your reasonable quality gravel roads are going to be, they're going to be the one that, or the tracks that most people will be doing, not much more. Back to that engine. It is a noisy engine mechanically. So, you know, don't mind revving out though. Yeah, it's noisy mechanically. It makes, you know, if it was an old car engine, you'd think the tappets were noisy. It's got that sort of sound to it. It's not particularly pleasant to my ears, but certainly once you get it, you know, above say 2,000, it doesn't vibrate like it does at idle. It smooths out. There is gobs of torque. Like this is, it's dishing out masses of torque. Same tune as the other GSs, the smaller ones, 149 Newton meters of torque. Like it's fairly unrelenting in that right from down low, and it will chug. It chugs really nicely at low speeds. It'll even pull you up inclines in sort of first and second gear. Not a problem without any throttle. So yeah, it's torquey, super torquey. I do feel like for me though, there's still a little too much. Maybe not in the lower revs, but I find a little too much decel on throttle off. Like there's a fair bit of engine braking there. Again, you get used to it, but certainly when I jumped on it, I was like, oh, that's a bit more than I wanted, especially if you're in loose stuff. So you know, on the photo shoot here yesterday, going downhill section, you know, downhill some relatively tight gravel roads, loose surface like this. You know, I'm dropping down the cogs using the front brake, and the rear is pretty much just sliding around when you've got traction control turned off. So, you know, that's without really dabbing any brake. It's wandering around all over the place because it's got so much engine braking. So just be aware of that. You know, if you're in that situation, just drag a little bit of clutch, and that'll sort that out for you. Don't have it all the way in, but just drag a little bit. Just take the edge off it. That'll give that rear wheel some traction again for you. But yeah, I mean, this is the sort of stuff that I think is about. Let's be realistic. Is probably about as off-road in that last track as most Aussie customers will probably get to. And I think the extra weight of this bike, you know, I think it's a 32 kilogram premium over the smaller fuel tank capacity GSs. You know, that extra weight is not going to be as noticeable when you've got the bike loaded up with luggage, or if you're, you know, towing around a pillion. And so if that's you, I think this bike starts to make a lot more sense. Definitely. You know, because once you get, you know, you could have 100 kilos worth of luggage on this, and it's, you know, the luggage options are really quite good. You've got you know, an option for a very nice tank bag on the top. We'll show you the other options when we come to a standstill down here for the side. On here, side bags on the side of the tank, quite cool. And then your rear luggage rack is super sturdy. Like it feels and looks like it's made out of cast iron, which is probably where that extra weight comes from. So yeah, this is absolutely designed for the long distance, big trip, loaded up. That's the customer that this thing is aimed at. I think if you're like me and you'd rather just ride light with very minimal luggage, if any, and no pillion, I think the regular GS is a better option for you. There is no doubt that, and I'd go the lower seat height too, even on this one. I've got the rally seat and I've got it in low, as I said. I think that puts it at still like 895mm seat height, which is super tall. I want to go lower again. I don't need it to be that high. I can deal with it in terms of the transition between sitting and standing, no problem. So yeah, if that's you, if you're the rider that's going to do lots of the stuff that we're doing in this little ride, and not much more gnarly than that, then I think BMW have a bike for you, and I think it's called the GSA Trophy. If you want to do more technical stuff, then I would be looking at something else. Either look at you know, the standard GS 1300 Trophy X perhaps, or if you really want to get gnarly, then jump on the 900 Enduro, which I would prefer. That would be still my favourite GS. That's my pick of the bunch, the 900. I'm definitely of the light is right mentality. But let's get up here. We'll do a bit of a walk around and show you the bike, talk through some little points on it, and then we might call it a day. It's nice out now though. A couple of little grass parrots. Very nice out now. So let's do a thing, shall we? Let's do a thing. As you can see, that luggage rack here, that is super sturdy, beautifully designed. Clip straight in there, no problem. Great grab rails for your pillion if that's what you want to do. But yeah, I like this brace over here. Look how strong that is. That's mega. And this whole rear subframe is a different design and construction. This is obviously tube aluminium. On the regular GS's, that is a monocoque and is obviously a bit lighter, not designed to be having as much weight on it. With the big girl, you also get the engine protection bars and this little bit out here. Now I'm not sure whether that is there to help keep the bike slightly more upright when it falls on its side, so it's easier to lift because it's so heavy, or if it's designed to help protect your bag that's going to be on the side here and clips onto here. It'll come out here, that'll help protect that as well. Maybe it's a bit of both, not sure. But what I can tell you is if we come around here, I'll put on the center stand actually, I can show you just how wide that is. Oh, I've still got that up. So I'll put it up on the center stand. Well designed center stand, by the way, fairly easy to get up. Oh, she's a big girl. But see how wide those crash bars are? They are as wide, if not wider, than the edge of, it's a bit deceptive because that's not in the center. If I look this side, they're wider than the edge of the bars. So when you're filtering in traffic, they're a nightmare. Not that most customers are going to be filtering. These are plastic. Not a massive fan of them. And also you'll notice they have, on all of the trophy versions of the GS 1300, the indicators aren't in here anymore, they're moved down into here. Which I like, because that means throw that in the bin, put on a big dirty chunky hard set of aluminium bark busters and you'll be golden. Also should talk about, this has got the electric screen at the front, And here we go, I can toggle him right down and all the way up just with a touch of a button. Very nice, and can go taller than the regular screen. I found this to be really nice, and when you turn it off it'll drop down. In fact, I'll do that now. Turn him off, drops down out of the way. When you turn him back on, it'll pop back up to that same position, theoretically. Anyway, maybe when you start the engine, but yeah, it'll come back up to that same setting for you and remember it. Lights are pretty good actually, surprisingly good. I've done a bit of night riding, and yeah, not too bad at all with the other lights turned on. Not a bad thing. Yeah, styling wise, she's pretty square and boxy. That's going to be an acquired taste. Not sure whether it really floats my boat. That's okay. It's very, very purposeful. There's no doubting that. I think I much prefer the regular GS 1300, but that is just me. Yeah, otherwise, I mean, those are the main bits. So the gearbox, which was the main problem that I found in the other 1300s, that's been solved. That's now pretty good. In road mode, it's actually really nice. Enduro Pro mode, which is obviously your off-road version that you can dial traction right down, it is also, I found it really nice. Dynamic Pro, it's a little bit more abrupt, but that's okay. That's what you know, that's the mood that you're in when you flick it onto Dynamic Pro, which is your on-road sport mode. And yeah, that whole back end. Now, whether I'm not sure whether it's the extra weight of the bike, whether it's the different back end that has, I don't know, slightly different harmonics. I'm not sure what it is. It's got the, you know, it's got the long travel suspension on it, but I find in this GSA tune spec, it just feels more predictable. It feels a little slower in your slide. Yeah, it feels more controllable and easier to ride. But I think the secret to these big GSs is that it's not something that you punt along and ride really aggressively. So as opposed to something, again, I'll keep comparing it to Ducati's Multistrada Rally, that you can fairly wring that thing's neck, get playful, get creative, get aggressive with your body, you know, do all the things, you know, ride it pretty hard and it will respond. I don't think I would say the same about GS. I think the GS is much more float along, keep your momentum, let the bike do the work, let it rotate underneath you. You conserve your energy. I think this is the bike that's designed about energy conservation and letting the bike do the work. It's not about being playful. It's about, you know, long haul riding. And you know, if that's your thing, then giggity goo. I quite like the shape though overall. Nice profile. I do definitely like the styling of the smaller tank, no doubt. This is a little Bend of the Robot-esque, you know. And I think if I compared the 1300 to a Unimog, which is your big go anywhere vehicle, then this is 32 kilos heavier. This is a Panzer. She is a big thing. Quality though, well built, and now they've sorted that gearbox, I don't really have any major complaints. So yeah, I do really hope the gearbox tweaks are across the board. I'm told that there was some optimization for MY25 models. Whatever it is, whatever's been done, it works. So those are my quick thoughts on board of the GSA 1300 trophy spec. In this spec, I think I've mentioned everything that's kind of the main points. Gearbox, handling, luggage options everywhere. Like, it's really made to put heaps of luggage on. And as I said, if you're the rider that wants to load it up with, you know, let's say 100 kilos worth of luggage and or a pillion behind you, I mean, this is a a bloody good option, no doubt. No doubt at all. If you're not going to load it up, then I think you're better off with one of the other GSs. That's a lighter version, easier to ride. You know? And for me, that seat is monstrously high for a bike that has a 30-litre fuel tank. As I said before at the start, I've deliberately got the tank at about, what, a quarter. Because, man, it gets heavy with all that fuel. So if you know, it's a bit of planning involved, but yeah, I would. Let me get back out of here. There's a bit of bouncing up and down required when you start because your cursor, if you like, starts up here. But yeah, so you can see I've got under a quarter of a tank of fuel in here. And that's still showing up, I think, what, 130 k's range or something like that. But I certainly wouldn't want to be doing any serious off-road technical stuff with a full tank of fuel. I'd shudder to think about lifting this bike up off its side, you know, a couple of times. Hooey, that would not be fun, because it's never going to be laying flat. It's going to be half in a rut on the side of a hill, pointing the wrong way. You're going to be tired and stressed and exhausted and puffed. No thanks. So that's why I reckon most riders are going to stick to this sort of stuff. It's a cracking afternoon. I've just looked up at the skyline for the first time and too busy talking about the bike. It's almost dead calm here now. It's kind of eerie after being so windy earlier today. Anyway, back to the bike. I think that's about it. So, you know, if that's you, they're a good thing for that specific task, though. I think. Otherwise, look at another GS. If you're sold on a GS, if you're the rider that wants to load it up with luggage and or a pillion and belt around doing big trips, eat up the miles, which it will absolutely eat up the miles. This seat is much comfier, and the pillion seat actually, Rob tells me, is more comfortable on the back than the other seat on the other trophy that he was on. So yeah, they've done their homework there too. But I reckon I'm going to jump back on. I might go up Love's Track just for shits and giggles. There's a couple of spots that'll be challenging. Yeah, righto. We might go there, or I might change my mind. Anyway, if I do change my mind, we'll leave it there for today. But this is fun. I'm enjoying this more than I thought I would. A big, heavy bike. This is this is the biggest, heaviest adventure bike that I've ridden in quite a while. 269 kilos. Big girl. So I'm going to get back on it. I'm going to leave you folks to it. Enjoy your day. Get out if you can. And how good are motorbikes? You! Thanks, Skibby. Actually, we'll jump back in here. We will go back to Enduro Pro, but we'll turn the traction control back down to what it is in Enduro. I think. So let's do that. I'm having trouble deciding whether I want to have my visor up or down. I like the airflow, but I'm getting a few bugs. So it's handling those big whoops and stuff quite nicely with this longest travel suspension option. I'll crawl through here, being aware of how wide those crash bars are. You probably hear and see that traction control light flickering on the dash. But yeah, if I sort of can see it flickering away there. No, we might leave it on just to see what it's like. But as I was saying before, this is definitely a bike that, you know, I think is, oh, a bug right in the eyeball. That answers that question. Should have, oh, that's a stingy one. Should have had the visor down. Visor is down. Yeah, I can't see those bumps as well now, but that's okay. Yeah, it's definitely a bike that is designed just to be ridden quite smooth. Like, as you can probably tell through there, that's quite choppy. Nice bit of sandy loose stuff here. It soaks up the bumps really nicely, and I'm just going to let the revs drop down a bit. 2000 RPM, and it could tractor even lower. That's pulling very cleanly. That was a traction control kicking in there. So yeah, it sort of floats around from a handling perspective. There's another kangaroo I don't need to hit. I was reminded back there a little bit when I was wicking it up on the road and then pull that front anchor on. There is a lot of weight to pull up on a bike like this, so that was probably a bit silly on my part. But yeah, we're not bottoming out. I'm very impressed with the suspension, very, very impressed. For the brief, you know, and the brief is not laying the ears back and going mental, but you know, something that can do this stuff quite happily and would still be able to do this loaded up. I've got the suspensions on you know, normal setting. They're not wicked up at all, so you know, if you were to throw some more luggage on, dial up the stiffness a bit, no problem. So yeah, I'm very impressed with the suspension. Soaking those up really quite nicely. It's quite what's the word I'm looking for? It's very efficient. You know, it's not using much of my energy, which again comes, I think, back to the way that you're best riding a GS, as I'm learning, which is to let it do the work. Sort of minimal input. Jesus, another kangaroo. They're fucking everywhere. Minimal inputs from you, if you like. And yeah, I think that's when they shine. So we will leave it there today. Little trundle back home without hitting a kangaroo would be nice. And I'll catch you in the next one, folks.